All right, everybody. Thank you for jumping on with us for our Training Day podcast. I got my man Travis Vincent, a Bostonite, who took it on the chin in the Game 7. Hey, dude, that was close. And it was like 0-3 coming back from 0-3, 3-3. And like you had to go in, like, were you nervous or excited?
Yeah, I'd say a mix of two. I mean, when we went down 0-3, I mean, I went to bed depressed that night because
Oh,
we got punched in the mouth down in
right.
Miami.
What
But
was
then
it
for
like?
them to
What was
come
each
roaring back.
win like coming back? And then what was Game 7 like?
Yeah, I mean, each win like kind of built the anticipation, like, man, could they actually really pull this comeback off? And then, I got to the point where game seven, I thought we had that in the bag. I'm
Right.
like, dude, we're gonna get these dudes. And of course, when it didn't happen, that was rough. But congrats to all the Miami Heat fans. I'll give Richie Crayhall a shout out. He dogs me all the time. So congrats, but hopefully they can do it against Denver. We'll see.
No doubt. I mean, I had to stop short because I was just, enthralled in that series. But VP of FFL Overcome and elite producer, Hall of Fame producer, crushing it. Excited to have you on, my man. I too was bitten by the Miami bug as a Knicks fan. Dude, they're like so good. And it's like you're mad that they're winning because you're like, how are they doing this?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, but it's so unfair to do that when they keep winning series and they're in the finals.
Yeah.
It's so unfair. They're so well coached. They're so disciplined. They play as a team. They have a lot of dudes with chips on their shoulders. I mean, like, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, they're a good team. They wouldn't be in the finals if they weren't. So got to give them all the credit in the world. That's for sure.
No doubt. So moving on into our insurance conversation, why we asked you to be on. I mean, Trav, you're writing a pent load of life insurance every single month, helping a bunch of families. Um, Talk to us a little bit about what that's like, doing that every single month. I mean, obviously, it takes a routine, it takes discipline, it takes um, consistency, but then there's also a factor of it of, all right, well, this is how I feed this is how I feed my family now, right? Like, this isn't like there's no way I can hit underneath this number based on what we built as a lifestyle or what we're building as a lifestyle. So let's unpack that a little bit. We talked to a lot of people about what they want to do. I want to talk to you about what you're doing and how you're maintaining it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's just when you get the leads on automatic, you get the leads coming in automatically every week. Which, by the way, I think that's important because kind of like if you ran a pizza shop, right? I mean, or a steakhouse, right? Imagine how silly that'd be if all of a sudden you didn't know where the steaks are coming from. You're out of steaks in
Huh.
2 weeks, right? So just like the steakhouse has that automatic bill spend to make sure they got meat every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how my lead spend is at this point, where it's like every week, that lead bill's coming in. Obviously, I opened up an office, which we'll be doing, open it up soon to the public, hopefully in the next, couple of months or so. And that's another expense.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So, when you got some expenses, I mean, that to me, that's the motivator right there. Because like, not only do I got to cover the bills for my family, but you got to keep the business moving. So, for sure, that's definitely a motivator.
Makes sense. Now, you hit the Hall of Fame. You're gonna hit it again this year. It's obviously a year in and year out goal of yours now. When you think about that level of consistency, like you said, you're setting yourself up for success, starting with leads. What are you doing for leads? What does it look like as far as lead flow and what's happening on that front?
Yeah, so like I said, I have a couple different vendors that I work with, and it's just like an automatic thing. I work primarily mortgage, and I basically got because right now I'm all telesales. I
Mm,
still like to have local leads just because like I started in home,
right.
never dropped those counties, and then as I've added to it, I've just added other counties in the two states that I run.
What two
Um,
states?
New Hampshire and then Massachusetts.
Mass. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So, and the whole idea is I've also done some other states, but there's something about I like the idea of like, hey, if I'm getting my teeth kicked in on the phone, like I can show up
I
at
can
your
go.
door. I remember,
I knew that was coming, but I
yeah,
didn't know how
yeah,
thorough it was coming out. But I could show
yeah.
up at your door. So go ahead, baby.
Yeah, yeah, because I remember Sean Mike saying that, and it just stuck with me. He's like, "Hey, if the phones are not working, he's like, get in your car and go." And so, while I am licensed in like 26 states, and I've sold elsewhere, again, I probably have almost every county in the two states of New Hampshire and Massachusetts locked out with various mortgage vendors. And again, the whole idea is like, "Hey, look, if they're not answering the phone, well, then I can show up at your door and help you out that way." So I call myself a telesales agent, so I'd say right now I'm like 95% from the office on the phone.
Wow.
But again, I have no problem mixing that up if need be to make sure that I'm hitting the numbers that I need to hit. To me, anything less than like 30 families a month, like we starving. So got to make sure that that's happening, and not only just to keep the bills paid, but honestly too, I'm trying to build an agency, and in my opinion, you got to lead by example. So like Matt Borsch tells me all the time, that your agents are going to do about half of what you do. So again, if I'm not helping 30, 35 families a month, what does that look like for my agency? It's going to be pretty difficult. So
No doubt. Well, again, you won the Defensive Player of the Year award for FFL Tri-State at our awards dinner last year. For those that don't know what that is, it's the person with the highest persistency in our agency. And for the amount of insurance that you write, for you to have a 99% persistency, that literally means you keep all your money, which is like, hooray, hooray. Um, how are you doing that? And has that transitioned to the phone?
yeah, for sure. I think so. There's a couple things, and I'll kind of get into how I believe I'm able to do it because, again, definitely not by accident. And I have a couple guys that work out of my office that, if you looked at their persistency, again, it's like right there as well. Like we try to do a really good job because, in my opinion, like you can issue. I
Hmm.
mean, heck, I mean, I could hit Hall of Fame, but if like half of it fell off the books, I didn't do the families any good, and I definitely didn't do myself any good, right?
Right.
And I still get chargebacks too. I think when I won the award, it was pretty wild. I was at like 99. I think since then I'm probably about 96
I
on the
knew you were gonna
6 month
brag. I knew you
consistency.
were gonna humble brag me. I knew this was gonna
Yeah.
happen. Now I'm out 96 now. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
So I did go down a bit. Yeah. I have to put that out there. So I do get chargebacks, but yeah,
Just at a lower rate than everyone else. Got it.
yeah. But I think there's ways that you can limit them, which I can kind of dive into
Please
too if you
do.
want. Okay, yeah. I mean, so really a couple things I think, because obviously there's a lot in the presentation that I'll go through to make sure that, what they're buying is going to stay in force. But I'll kind of fast forward to like after, let's say I've done all the underwriting, I kind of know what they're going to be eligible for. So then I just, I get them a pen and paper. We're going to go through three options. I like to have the three option close, and again, I'm doing mortgage, so let's just pretend I'm talking to a healthy, maybe younger client that can afford, to have like a term product, right? So I usually show them three options. I'll show them the full mortgage, half of the mortgage, and then the third of the mortgage. And I'll just kind of go into and explain like, what that'll do, how it'll work. So I always start with the full one. I'm like, all right, so here's kind of how it works, Mark. And I explain, hey, there's a death benefit, you die. Let's say if the mortgage is 400,000, it's going to pay out 400,000 to your family. It also has living benefits, which means, and I'll go through that, any critical illness like heart attack, cancer, stroke, any like chronic illness, if you can't perform two of the major six daily living activities for at least 90 days or more, then I just tell them that, hey, you're going to have access up to 400,000 of the face amount that you could pull from the policy and help your family in your time of need. And then, of course, if I'm talking about a cash back product, I like to let them know that, hey, the best part is hopefully you don't need this. And if you don't, in essence, it was a savings account. You just put some money aside for a while, you get it all back at the end. But bottom line, when I explain the product, whether that be the term, the cashback, or maybe I'm doing equity protection whole life, if it's like a senior market, right, that can't qualify for a term, but I'll explain, hey, look, this is the big option, the full mortgage. And then I always tell them that I don't recommend the big one. Like every time, no matter what, even if I think budget wise they can afford it, I always let them know that, and I'll be honest with you, Mark, I actually don't recommend that you do the full mortgage. Now it's two reasons why. I say number one, over time, you're going to start to pay down the mortgage. So again, you may not need the whole thing, but I am required to show it to you. And also, too, Mark, what's important here is we do need to find something that actually makes financial sense and fits easily into the budget. Because at the end of the day, this is super important to have, but it doesn't make any sense to be insurance rich and cash poor.
Right.
And they always agree with that word track there. And then I just show them the next option, which would be again half mortgage and then a third of the mortgage. I call that the bare minimum. You know, worst case scenario, let's put something in place to where if something happens, and at least for 10 years, right, a third of your loan, you know, finances don't really take a hit. So I'm big on downselling. So when I
Right.
show them three options, I always recommend away from the top one, and then I show them, you know, option 2 and 3. And even if they pick the middle one, then I'll just challenge them. You know, I always tell them, like they say, hey, the middle one works good. Or sometimes I still have people pick the big one, and then I'll just say, okay, so that sounds good, Mark. So just to make sure, let's say on a bad month, right? Car breaks down, you know, kids need something extra, the house needs an upgrade. Is this something that you can sustain long term, even on a bad month? And I
I love
almost like
that.
make them doubt their decision
Love.
because I would rather write a small policy
Right.
that'll stay on the books than a big one that, you know, month or a couple months down the road, they're like, hey, I can't keep this anymore.
Sure.
So it's very rare that I'm going to submit like a larger policy. It's always like I'm always kind of walking them down. And so I think when I'm showing them options, that's probably where I'll go to keep the persistency high. And then towards the end, there's a few different things that I let them know as well. Like usually when I'm closing up and I'm in that cool down period,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'll kind of let them know that, hey, and here's my strategy, right? Everyone's got their own niche. I never tell any client that they're approved on the spot. I never do. And I know Americo's great because they're always approving on the spot. Mutual Omaha does that a lot, even Prosperity sometimes, but I just never tell them. And I think the reason for that is because I'm trying to control their thought when the first bill comes out. So here's kind of what I tell everyone, even if I've written up an Americo policy and they were approved on the spot, I don't let them know that. I say, okay, so here's 3 things to look out for, Mark. Okay. If you get declined, the insurance carrier is going to email me letting me know, and they're going to send you a letter in the mail letting you know that they're not going to take you for coverage. Now I'll get the email before you get the letter in the mail. Not bad news because I'll just follow up with you. Again, I'm a broker. I work with multiple carriers. We'll look to pivot and go somewhere else. Okay. And I also say, like, hey, you also may get a phone call from the insurance company. And that kind of covers my bases in case they have extra underwriting questions. If there's anything in your medical report that looks different than what I put on the app, they may actually call you and try to clarify what that is. All right, just to give you an FYI. And then here's kind of the money shot, which I think helps with some of the persistency. Now, Mark, if you get approved, you're going to notice 2 things. First thing is they're going to draft the first premium out of the account. So if you see that happen, that is great news. That means
Love.
they approved you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part of that is you're going to get the physical policy in your mailbox. Now, Mark, do me a favor. When you get the policy, please review it very carefully. Make sure that all the names are spelled correctly. And if you have any questions or concerns, hit me back at this number here. This is my personal cell, and we'll go through it all together. So I think I did a couple things there. Number one, if I submit an app and they don't know they're approved, it's like almost the people are funny, right? They want what they can't have.
Right.
So if they just assume that at any time they can get this coverage, you know, maybe they don't want it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're waiting a couple of days and then the draft is coming out, they're like, oh, good news. I've been approved. Now it's a good thing. You know, it's not one of those negative things like, hey, what is this charge for again? So it's just kind of controlling their thought on that first premium. Because I mean, you and I both know once you get someone in the habit of doing something, you know, once it's a habit, they're good. You know, once they're used to paying that bill, it's most likely going to stay on the books. You know, that and never ever post date. If you're a new agent, if you ever post date something, that is a chargeback waiting to happen. Because again, they're going to forget all the emotion that you drew up in the presentation. So those are just a couple of things that I think I really work on and my team works on to make sure that, again, what we're writing is staying in place.
That's huge, man. Man. That was a clinic. I'm like listening to it, going like with you, word by word, section by section. Like you have 3 or 4 sections that you're very thorough in what, and I'm like, that makes all the sense in the world to me that this guy has this high persistency because it's like you're it's almost like here's all your outs, um, and then there's the thoroughness of even like the policy. Open it up, go over the names specifically, make sure everything's spelled correctly. You have any questions? That's like, where did you maybe I'm assuming you just have defensive instincts, right? Like I'm just assuming your past and the things you've done in middle school, high school, college, whatever sports you play, like you built this process because I never heard anyone do it as thorough as you've done it, and I've been around a while. Um, but no one gave you that. You made that, right? You totally trial and errored that and made that on your own. When did you start doing that? And was that something you were doing from day one, or did you kind of figure out like, I need these to not fall off, and then you built that? And when did you get that finalized? I just want to kind of hear your process on this.
Yeah. So it's something like a lot of the word tracks I kind of stole from other agents, but I kind of compiled it into something that I felt worked for me. And it's definitely something I've worked on over time because early on in the business, I think my first like couple of sales charged back and it freaked me out. As a new agent, I'm like, oh my God, is this even real? Right.
Huh.
Again, Mike Irvine, Matt Borsch, they do a lot of work with me, and they're helping me like, hey, the better you are as the agent, the better you help your client, then the more that stuff will stay on the books. But I think too, like prior to FFL, I worked at a fundraising company, and what that meant is like we're doing fundraising for like police, fire. So basically, we're calling on the phone, we're asking for donations for people to help out the first responders. Well, the way the system was set up at that company is we didn't do anything over the phone for the main reason that there's a lot of scams out there, and people are real hesitant about stuff like that. So how we would do it is we would actually we basically get the commitment that they were going to help out the police or firefighters, and then we'd mail it to them in the mail under the promise that once they got it and they understood that it was actually legitimate and it was going to the first responders like we said it would, that they would be returning the payment back in the mail. So I think after working at that call center and managing it for like 8 years,
Wow.
I mean, that was the game. The game wasn't, hey, I just, I raised this much money per day for the firefighters. No. What the game was, hey, how much actually came in to help out the cause? And so anybody can just, write a bunch of stuff out the door. But if you can get the customer to remember you commit and mail in the donation, those were the successful agents, which helped the campaign. So I think kind of similar here, I feel the same way here. The game is not write a bunch of business. The game is not even get it issued. The game is, hey, let's make sure that the client is protected for life or for the next 30 years. And then you as the agent actually got paid and were able to keep it. I mean, that's the game. And so I'm
I
just a
love
big
it.
believer on trying to be profitable. And I think that's maybe a little bit where I got that from.
That's strong, man. I like that a lot. I did not have that exact approach when I was doing it. So to hear your perspective on it is it's challenging my journey as an agent in a good way. Like, yeah, I wrote a whole lot of life insurance, and I accepted that there was this amount that is going to fall off. Probably more than I should have. So it's refreshing to hear you say, like, the game is not, just to write a bunch. It's not even get a bunch issued. It's to make sure it's a client for. So that's you're a better insurance agent than me. And I would say, for you make the industry better. Guys like you make the industry better. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Making sure the client's a client for life, which is what we all want. and the fact that you're getting paid with everything you can get paid on these policies, which that it's not like mind-boggling that you're saying that. It's just I just threw my experience in there and I had to start laughing because I'm like, I'm gonna be crazy offensive. I'm just going to write the lights out. And everyone that I write says yes, they want the policy, and I'm going to downsell like the next man. I'm not going to upsell; it makes no sense. But I didn't have. I listen when you say, you know, I'm. I took stuff from people. I took the same stuff, but I never had a process like yours. Mine was like, I'd say two things, and it was like, making sure they wanted it and that they could afford it, and then like two closed. It wasn't a methodical. I didn't become, the Marcus Smart of life insurance. Defensive Player of the
Yeah.
Year. So, congratulations to you for that. That's a huge nugget process that I think a lot of people need and will listen to because your statistics are so high. So there's you as the agent. You've certainly came on building an agency, FFL Overcome. You have top agents, you have top producers, you have people that you're working with, a recruiting process. What is the journey like in 2023 for you guys, and how do you see this thing getting it to where you want it to be?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think at FFL you have two muscles, right? You have the selling muscle and then you have the building muscle, and it's a lot of hard work for both, right? And they're different animals. So one thing I'm learning is, again, just trying to build good relationships with the agents on my team. Again, lead by example, teach them how to sell, how to keep it on the books, things like that. And really trying to learn a lot from, I'll be honest, like Matt Borsch and Mike, man, I mean, they got the building part down. Like they
Mm.
are just like, they're running away, like a runaway train. And
Mhm.
it's a blessing to be a part of it,
Right.
and, Matt and I just had a conversation. I think it was like a little over a week ago, and really it was cool. He just kind of called me out of the blue and just really kind of went all through my hiring process. Cause one thing that, we're trying to figure out is, how to get some agents that maybe, again, are cold market, right, to buy in, start making some money right away and get up and moving. And, Matt and Mike really have that down. So kind of really working with me on that. But yeah, I think a lot of it is, again, just being coachable, having the stamina to kind of stay in it. And kind of looking to grow with people. Because at the end of the day, this is a relationship business, right? When you're working with clients, if they trust you, if they think you're there for their own good, they're going to buy from you and they're going to keep it, right?
Mhm.
And I think the same goes for agents. If an agent believes that, hey, this person actually is looking out for me, I trust this person, they're out for my well-being, that agent will want to work with your agency. So that's kind of something that I'm kind of learning and
Yep.
trying to get the hang of. And ultimate goal is, SVP by the end of the year.
Love it.
We said that to begin the year, and I don't back down from goals. We got plenty of time. We got 6 months, so
Mhm.
that could happen pretty easily here in the second half of the year. A lot of my logins, right, are that's my password, right? SVP 2023. Because again, just ingraining it. Hey, this is the goal here.
Yes, sir.
Um, so
Which
yeah, hopefully that answers a little bit about that.
highly achievable goal. When you think about what's not happening, Travis, what do you think about? What if you could be injected with a shot of something great from an agency standpoint, what would it be?
Yeah, I think what Overcome and Travis Vincent can work on is getting agents up and going quickly.
Okay.
Because I think for the average person, like, again, I was a slow learner, right? I came in and it took me a couple months to figure this out, but I'm just like a stubborn mule. Like I just
Hmm.
don't quit. But I think for the average person, it's vital that they get in here, get close to the fire, get plugged in, and start actually helping families to where they can make some money. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at kind of other opportunities, right? So to answer your question, if I could get injected, I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to learn and help other agents, is to get up and going and get going quickly. Get around the fire, get moving.
What is your recruiting process like right now?
Yep. So I'm all over social media. I'm doing a bunch of DMs I'm looking for real estate agents, insurance agents, solar. Looking for pest control. Really, any type of sales or entrepreneur. I'm targeting them on Instagram, Facebook. Trying to work on the DM campaign. Definitely trying to reach out to warm market as well. And then I still use Indeed too. I actually pay for Indeed ads once a month, and I have an appointment setter that'll kind of like tee them up for me, so to speak.
Yeah.
Look, kind of weed out some of the candidates, find some people that may be interested in doing something like this to better their lifestyle, make some extra income, or to replace income. And I'm kind of going through that. So I got my feelers kind of everywhere.
Dude, I love it that you're active. So whenever you're that active, stuff is happening. How many people on average do you say you're bringing in a week or a month?
I'd say right now, I mean, a week, probably a handful, maybe like two or three
Okay.
a week, and then a month, maybe like 10 to 12.
That's licensed, and that's class and licensed, or just class?
Just class. I would say
Okay.
that's class. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so as this is going, the goal's SVP. You know, I want to try to give you a little shot here to try to help you get through that. I mean, I've been through many different droughts, if you will, through all stages of this business. Um, you have the ability to bring them in. I mean, who wouldn't want to work with you? You're super sharp and you're selling a lot. Like you have fruit on the tree. There's the way you teach it, people are going to want to learn. Makes sense? So when you
Yeah.
say getting agents up and moving, to me, that sounds like not enough's coming in, because I don't know how you wouldn't get agents. Does that make sense? Meaning, like, if you have
Yeah.
3 agents a month that you're choosing from, then yeah, it's in your head is getting agents up and moving, right? But nobody goes 3 for 3 every month, every single month, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
when it's that, then I go, all right, well, we need to pour more gasoline on the front end of the funnel, right? What can we do to bring more to do more on the front end? You're active on the front end the way you say you are, then more will be coming in. But can you do something right now to maybe multiply what's coming in on the front end? Because I don't think about how methodical you are with building your process
Mhm.
for your persistency. So you're a guy who's going to figure it out. You're not like you did coming in. Your whole story is like you said. I don't know what you said, but you're like a bulldog that's you're going to figure it out. The way
Yeah.
you started in our industry was, flat on your face, and you just kept working. You kept figuring it out. So you're a guy who's going to figure it out. What we need to figure out right now is how to get a process on the front end that brings more people to the funnel. Because 10 people a month is not enough. Joe Bassel can't do it. I mean, he might be one of the best recruiters. I mean, it's difficult. Sean Mike's going to have a difficult time with 10 people a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we got to somehow increase, because if you get more at the top, you're going to create the process. So it's not getting people moving. It's just not enough coming through the funnel. Once we get that fixed, overcome, you could be doing 500 families by the end of the year. Make
Yeah.
sense?
That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
So as you start building a process to bring more in at the top, I would say assume that you're going to get it moving. You can't beat yourself up for something that's not happening, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
when you say I can't get it moving, it's nothing's happening. It's not a lot to kind of grade yourself on. Start figuring out that portion, and I promise you, your process, your methodology, you'll get enough down here, and then you'll be fine, dude.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
And when I think one of the lessons that a lot of people can learn from this podcast from you is that I'm not going to quit. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to play processes in my mind till I get it right. And at the end of the day, when you see more agents coming through, you can imagine what you're going to do with that. Does that make sense? You have to give
Right.
yourself credit for the things you're great at, right? You have to. Otherwise, you're going to run your head into a brick wall over and over again saying, I'm not good at this, which is not true. We just
Yeah.
have, there's only one thing we have to figure out. It's the top end of the funnel, and it's over. That's it, brother.
Game over.
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Because you're going to figure it all out anyway. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So, listen, man, if you could give something to a new agent in regards to what you've done, which is amazing, I'd love to hear you drop a nugget.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say parting shout, if you're a new agent, like, just find a way to stay in it. It's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon, right? Imagine trying to run a marathon and right out the gate, you're just like hustling as fast as you could. Well, you'll be out of gas really quickly. But if you can go at a steady pace, meaning you don't stop, you never stop, but you're consistently just, jogging. I mean, dude, you can run a marathon.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of the way I see insurance. Like, look, insurance to me is it's the greatest industry. I wish I would have found it sooner, right?
Right.
I'm super glad to be a part of it. And with that being said, Family First Life is the best in insurance. So, I mean, this is where it's happening. This is the place to be. But just keep in mind that, look, there are peaks and valleys. But if you can pace yourself and stay in it, dude, this is the best decision I ever made. My wife's wicked happy. My kids are better off for it.
Amen.
I mean, there's nothing else better out there, in my opinion.
Dude, you're a stud, bro. You know what I'm going to start celebrating right now? EVP by December.
Love it.
Because there's one thing I know is Travis Vincent's going to figure it out. So appreciate you for jumping on with me, man. Thank you for sharing on our Tri-State Training Day podcast. Travis Vincent, FFL Overcome. God bless. Appreciate you, buddy.